It's Bristol, baby, with Go Bowling in the rear view. Brian and I are turning our focus to talk some short track racing at the Coliseum as we go to Bristol for a Saturday night race. We'll recap all that was the Glen, plus look at Bristol. What bets should you, will you make this week? And all that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, I'm annoyed. I thought I had it all sorted. I thought I had it all figured out. I was not one of the smart people that decided to jump on those 30-something, 40-something to 1 tickets on Christopher Buescher. I did get some exposure to him after Wormy's previous pull on the top Ford market, which obviously cashed considering he won the freaking race. But I had SVG at 850. I had Christopher Buescher top Ford. They were 1-2. They were coming to the end. I know it was fun. I know it was good racing. I was celebrating too early. And he bumped him. Like, he ran away and then all of a sudden came back. Was SVG just not pushing it like he should have?
SVG got squirrely, I think, and that's what wound up happening, and that's what gave Buescher the opportunity to retake the lead. Now, if you go back 3 laps, Buescher probably wins the race because SVG had a terrible restart, and then he was being blocked by, I think it was Carson Hocevar or something at that moment. So he had to be able to get through him and then have to chase down Buescher. And then if you go back even further, had the thing stayed green, SVG was making hay and he was, diminishing the 4-second lead that Buescher had. But at some point, I don't know if the slight tire advantage that SVG had was going to, basically dissipate. And then the amount of lap time that he was going to be able to make up, would it have been enough had this thing stayed under green for him to even get to Buescher's rear and then potentially win the race? So
no,
I think in the end, the best car won. Early in the week, look, I faded Buescher with a Suarez matchup. It was plus money. I don't regret the bet, but as I've grown as a bettor, listening to everybody talk up Buescher, listening to Wormy during the pre-race poll, which you definitely should be tuning into, and just after watching practice, I grabbed exposure to Buescher at 33-1. So, it kind of salvaged my day, but we'll look at the betting card. Clearly it didn't turn out well because of one driver in particular who didn't even get to run the damn race essentially. But yeah, no, it was a fun race. I don't know if it was exciting by any means until the end. It just looked like a regular road course where guys had difficulty passing, and that was about it.
Yeah. Let's look at the betting card because, as you mentioned, it's not pretty, but there's a lot of good bets in there. They might not have cashed, but that doesn't mean they're bad bets. SVG at 850, very happy to have that. Hendrick was kind of underwhelming just in general. Yeah. Chris Bell was okay, but I think my favorite thing about the race is that Chris Bell was top Toyota and did not cash his top 10.
Dude, so it was funny. Shortly after the race, I came back in here. I had a little break in between my football stuff, and I graded all these wagers, and I just happenstance put an L next to Christopher Bell top Toyota because I saw he finished 14th, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a loss. And then I saw somebody on Twitter mention, wouldn't you know it, Christopher Bell cashes long shot top Toyota ticket, finishing where he did. I went, what? Had to go back and look, and sure enough, the Toyotas just shit the bed and just did not finish well. Denny Hamlin, what a disastrous day. Tyler Reddick getting taken out early. Yeah, it was chaos.
Yeah, I really wish we could have seen Reddick run the full race. That would have been nice. I feel like he would have been strong, but it's fine. Well, I'm not bitter at all. Blaney obviously got taken out early too. Logano was kind of mixed in that stuff, ended up being fine, but obviously wasn't the car. We both took Suarez over Buescher. at plus money. I took Briscoe over Truex, which plus 230 bet, baby. You love to see it. You love to see it. Yeah, so got a little aggressive on the outright card. I thought there was some opportunity. I just didn't get to the right guy. I didn't get low enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I kind of sat in that like 20, like high teens, low 20s. And I needed to go farther. So, don't really regret any of my bets. But yeah, I was a little frustrated with the end of the race for sure. Chevy not winning was kind of wild, obviously.
I mean, it did look great early on because
Mhm.
from the get-go, it did look like Ross Chastain was going to have a potentially race-winning car.
Yeah.
He was leading the most of the laps. It looked like SVG couldn't get around him, and then almost at one point, I mentioned in a Discord, it almost looked like SVG was actually blocking for Chastain to allow him to maintain the lead there. So,
Yeah.
I thought Chevy was definitely in it, and then the Dinger top 10, like when you don't even get to run a lap, basically,
Yeah.
it just ruined my day from the get-go, kind of.
And I did grab some Chastain, to your point, live at like 7, I think, and then I'll
Yeah.
instantly cut in half. So I felt fine about that bet. But yeah, no, Dinger, Reddick, probably the two most frustrating cars for us, for our bets, for what we wanted to happen on Sunday. I know there
And
was.
I will say I'm very happy that the one bet that I wrote up for our free newsletter, winning card number odd, wound up cashing. It just seemed too short of odds that they were going to lay that at almost even money when you had the pole sitter driving the number one car. You had AJ Allmendinger up there. You had Chris Buescher, who was definitely going to be a threat. Kyle Larson was amongst the favorites. That number was too long, I guess you would say, from the book's perspective. And I actually saw it close at like minus 150 or something in its favor. So
Yeah, so here's what Brian wrote up. If you're not subscribed to our Substack, this comes out every race day, chocked full of bets. Obviously, I had the McDowell top 10 that ended up cashing. Brian had the winning card number, which some weeks feels like random, and other weeks, like this week, where
yeah,
you're just like doing the math and figuring, okay, this car, this car, this car. Like obviously Byron wins, well, okay. Bell wins, okay. But for the most part, Larson, Hamlin, SVG, Chastain, Swar, like all the guys that we were excited about were all in odd cars. So at minus 105, I think it made some sense. From a DraftKings perspective, we built lineups and I was pretty sure I entered them, but it was also midnight and I'd been up since 4 a.m. So they didn't get entered. I did do some cash, so I can show you that real quick, but we'll review our picks that we wrote up just so you can see kind of where our head was at. But obviously, having Buescher and Chastain was a great way to build your lineup. Todd Gilliland, top 16. Starting 37th, felt good about that. Was still able to cash in my cash lineups, even though I had Blaney and he was out basically on the first lap. So
did you know? I looked at it today. Blaney, the last three races has in two of the three races, he has a total of 2 laps completed.
yeah, I had outright ticket with a rat when he got wrecked 2 weeks ago, and then
Yep.
I had some exposure to him this week. So yeah, it was really fun. Let's go back to this. So Brian had Reddick. Obviously, that didn't work. But Chastain, that was a great call at 7,500. Even starting first, 56 points, pretty solid day.
And he was actually better than I even anticipated.
Yeah.
I thought it was only going to be like maybe stage 1 to be able to hold off SVG, but he was good.
Yeah. Yep. Where did Juan Pablo end up finishing?
I think he finished right around his starting position. I think he got
Okay.
like 31st or 32nd or
Little
something.
annoying there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, we bred up all of our DraftKings thoughts.
McDowell was really good too. He was up there towards the end as well.
Yeah. So I feel good about that. Bell, not so much. Blaney obviously didn't get to run the race, so who knows? Then we do our bets. We do our episodes. You can see our full betting card in here. So it's completely free. Comes to you every race day, and highly recommend hitting subscribe if you have yet to do that. With that being said, Brian, is there anything else you want to hit on in terms of the go bowling at the Glen, or should we just turn our attention to Bristol, baby?
I let me just say that race turned into a road super speedway race in my eyes. It was just complete chaos, throw dice at the wall. Like,
Yeah.
who the F would have envisioned the stuff that transpired during that? Like, for instance, going back to Chastain and Dinger, I mean, credit to Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen. Credit to Shane Van Gisbergen for making his way back up front, because when he and Chastain had stayed out prior to the end of stage 2, I believe it was, when that caution came out, I thought they were totally effed.
Yeah.
And then they just got lucked. They lucked into another caution at some point during the early run in stage 3, which allowed them to stay on the cycle as everybody else. But like, those two were the best two cars for the majority of the race simply because of track position. And I think that's something that, again, is a common theme in road courses still. Like, track position is king, clean air is king, and passing is almost impossible outside of a handful of guys that you got to see do it. Because even Kyle Larson, I mean, he basically was nowhere to be seen all race.
Yeah. Let's shift our focus and talk some Bristol. The odds board isn't super attractive this week. Obviously, the elite names are the elite names for a reason. They're going to be priced aggressively. FanDuel, once again, seems to have the best numbers kind of across the board. So if you have access to FanDuel and you're betting this week's race, highly recommend taking a gander over there. Hamlin, Larson, Bell, Gibbs, Keselowski, Buescher are your top 6. Looking at win the races pre-race rankings, it's Hamlin, Larson, Gibbs, Bell, and then Byron, and then Keselowski. So, I mean, if you're looking for a value, Byron, I guess, would be the name per win the race. But I guess from your perspective, Brian, any interest in betting any of these guys?
Yeah, I don't have any interest at any of these numbers. Like, I can tell you, I'm not touching Ty Gibbs pre-flop at 10 or shorter. I mean, he's shorter than 10-1 at some books, and offshore, I know he opened at, like, I think it was 8 or something at our primary.
He's currently 9 at our favorite one.
All right, so he floated a little bit. That still, I'm not touching Gibbs at that number. And from what it seems like is we're coming back with the same tire that we did during the spring, which threw a wrench into the race, where Ty Gibbs was incredible, but faded like a rock because he couldn't maintain on the tires. He was just pedal to the metal from the get. But when you look at that race, if we're coming with the same package, same equipment, same everything, that's not going to catch anybody by surprise this weekend. And so you're going to have a completely different type of race transpire this Saturday night under the lights with the playoff spots on the line than we did during the spring. So I have a hard time getting to these short numbers. Obviously, Denny, he's incredible here. But again, like, him only being 6 points below the cut line, he could make that up in the first stage. And then, maybe he goes back to playing it safe, like he's been doing essentially the first 2 rounds for no damn reason that has actually hurt him more than it's helped. So, I think they're going to get aggressive to try to win. But at what point during the race, if, say, they potentially jump Gibbs or Briscoe, who are the guys behind him, do they say, okay, let's throttle it back, let's just try to get to the end here and advance?
Yeah. I'm looking at iFantasy Races rankings, or not rankings, but like speed rankings from the last 3 Bristol races, so 22, 23, and then the first race this year. Bell's number 1. He was awesome in 22 and 23. Obviously, that was the night race. He was 6th this year in terms of speed. Hamlin was 6th, 2nd, and 3rd. Then Larson, then Keselowski, then Buescher. So everything's kind of syncing up. The odds board, win the races rankings, the speed rankings from the last few years. It's the same names popping up. As we get into double digits, obviously you said you're not as optimistic on Gibbs. Given what we saw, like he could be awesome, but he has to definitely learn about kind of maintaining tires and not absolutely train wrecking his car. But like as we get into the next kind of wave of Keselowski, Buescher, Truex, Blaney, Logano, and Elliott before we get to 20-1 and longer, are you getting a little more interested, or is it really just jump to the long shots and figure it out once we see cars on tracks?
Yeah, so when lines first dropped, I think it was Caesars posted Keselowski at 15-1, and that was the first number that I immediately was attracted by. Now, that was only available for probably 2 minutes before it started
Yeah.
taking money, and then I think it got dropped all the way down to 10 before returning back to 12, and then 13, and then back to 10. So obviously Keselowski's taking on a lot of money because he's below Denny, even below the cut line. And we all know how good Keselowski is at Bristol. And then we saw how good he was here in the spring. So, obviously he's somebody to keep in mind. But 12, like I just can't get there because, again, with Denny and the Toyotas priced so short, and then Larson, if those guys go out and they qualify as well as we're expecting them to, Keselowski is probably going to reopen at 10 or 9, and then you're in a better spot and you get to see that he has a decent car again. So, he's not somebody I'm running to the window to grab right now, and nor am I looking at Buescher, who was incredible here. I know some people liked, he opened at 20, I think, which I don't hate that, but how many times has a guy won back-to-back races? That just doesn't happen. And this is also a guy who's had such bad luck this year. Like, it took him with a half lap to go passing SVG to get his first win of 2024. So, I mean, like, what are the chances that he wins 2 in a row?
Yeah. Well, and I have a future on him to win under 1.5 races. Obviously he gets the win on Sunday.
Yeah.
Do I hedge it by betting him to win this race, or do I let it ride? I don't know.
I feel like with somebody like him, you would hedge by betting him to win a road course. Because that's the best shot of that happening. I don't think it's the Speedway.
You couldn't pay me to bet Truex. I was telling you before, I'm not betting him with your money, so we'll see if he wins. But as you mentioned, he seems uninterested. Although the last guy you said that seemed checked out and uninterested just won a race, so maybe we should all be just loading up on Truex at this price.
Look, that was speculation on my part. I said take it with a grain of salt, but that's just what it sounded like. Now, he went out there and kicked everybody's ass when it mattered. So clearly I was wrong, and I'll own that. But
also, shout out to our favorite offshore for pricing Truex at 10, where he's 16 and longer other places.
Yeah, it's unbettable.
Unbelievable.
I was just going to say, for the most part, to me, the outright board right now is unbettable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm going through the names. Like, I love betting William Byron early and often, but 18, 20, 22, like that's.
I don't hate Byron, but
But has he ever really been that good here?
That's the thing. He's got a. Let me see. Let me see this. William Byron has a total of 0 laps led in the last 10 trips to Bristol. I mean, salud. What does that say?
It says he's not a race-winning car, Brian. That's what it says.
I mean, he has good finishes. In 2 of the last 4 years, 21 and 22, he finished third both years, but he's not running up front at this track. This just the old farts seem to do well here, and I don't think he falls into that category yet.
And the Sim Center at Win the Race says he should be like 23-1. So I'm seeing a guy who's not worth betting. Which, by the way, if you have access to Win the Race, I highly recommend clicking subscribe. It's $30 for the first month, and then $60 thereafter. We're not sponsored. We just use the crap out of it and really enjoy benefits it gives us. So happy to shout them out as we use some of their information.
And also, too, a part of that is you get to jump into the Discord where you have
Mhm.
other like-minded individuals shopping numbers, and it's most of the time it's about shopping numbers, not drivers, and finding value where it can be had at books.
Yep.
And so,
And Greg Mathern and company do a really good job of shouting out everything. Hey, I found this at Fanatics, found this at Hard Rock, I found this
Yep.
here. So shouts to them. Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch, Josh Berry, Ross Chast. Like, is there a name that makes you go, I could see that being worthwhile? Like, probably not at 40, but I know there's some Alex Bowman steam, and if you can get him close to 50,
yeah.
I feel like we should fire on that, by the way.
I was just going to say, I was just telling Kyle prior to jumping on here yesterday, the only number that I considered actually betting was Bowman at 40. And so I don't hate 48, similar to William Byron. Like, he's not a front runner at this track by any means.
No, but if you're getting close to 50 instead of around 20, that feels
exactly. Yeah. And you're talking about a guy who in 3 of the last 4 trips here, he's got a 5th, a 13th, and a 4th place finish. So clearly he knows how to manufacture decent runs and be near the front at the end. And I mean, from what we've seen in NASCAR this year, already eclipsing the most ever overtime finishes. You're going to have some desperate drivers here this weekend. Who knows if he could be sitting there in 4th place, coming to a couple to go, and reap the rewards of people getting into each other on a restart or something like that. We've seen Bowman hack into wins before, so I don't mind jumping on this number now.
Yeah, and if you look at his speed rankings, like, he's never been crazy fast, but he's always been kind of pretty solid in that like 10 to 15 range. So,
Yeah.
And we know how strong Hendrick can be. Obviously, Larson. We'll see what Chase does, but yeah, close to 50, I'm gonna take a nibble. There was some fall testing for Bristol, which was Austin Dillon, Corey LaJoy, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Buescher, John Hunter, and Justin Haley. I mean, I feel like, not that it's like brand new track that they've never run and all of a sudden these guys have a massive advantage, but it does feel like the guys that have done testing at some of these tracks throughout the year have tended to fare a little bit better. So does that give you any extra little interest in maybe betting a Buescher or any of these other jabronis?
Not really, because they're not changing the tire code from what it seems like. So I think you're going to get more from what we saw in the spring of just who was like fast.
Yeah.
You could take more away from that and how those guys perform there than you can during a tire test when they're throwing on different compounds, they're testing different tire strategies and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't really put too much emphasis on that type of thing. And too, when you look at the list of drivers that were there, I mean, what are you even? What market are you
jabronis for
looking
sure
at those guys for? You know,
I mean, I do it to myself every week, but given where his number is, I can't bet Chase Briscoe. Like, I really want to be like, just take Chase Briscoe, add it to the card, and watch him be much better than we think. He's obviously not going to win the race. So ultimately, what are we doing? But
the only thing I will say about Chase Briscoe and the Fords in general is that they've actually qualified. They qualified really well here during the spring. And if that trend continues, a lot of these guys' odds are going to drop significantly.
yeah.
Now, clear, I don't know if you could actually say that Chase Briscoe is going to have a shot to win here. I know he was good in the Bristol dirt, but that's clearly does not correlate at 1 iota to what we're going to see this weekend.
What about the guys that ran well but only have run this course once and haven't done
You're talking
John
about Josh
Hunter
Berry?
was 7th in speed rankings. Josh Berry was 9th in the last one.
Yeah, but I think
that was such a different race, right?
I think the surprise of what happened with how dramatic the tire wear was, that throws everything out of the window. Like, you can forget all of past history and all that stuff because guys were already on different strategies and then people had to pivot immediately, and certain guys came into there with a certain setup that just wasn't suited for that type of tire wear, and all of those teams are going to make those adjustments coming into this weekend, knowing that that's probably what the expectation is for the tire on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Which again, it's going to point to the fact that we're getting a full field single practice, 45 minutes, a full field 45-minute session on Friday afternoon, mind you, 3 hours before the expected start time of the actual race on Saturday, which to me is ridiculous. So that's definitely something to keep in mind is who's going to be throwing down good lap times. If you can watch it, I highly recommend watching it to see who can make passes, who's able to run up top, who's able to maintain speed throughout practice session, who's pitting, who's making adjustments. Like, practice this week is going to be very important.
Can we do that again? So there's practice and qualifying is on Thursday, right? No, that's for the trucks.
Yeah, no, it's Friday.
Friday. Okay, I thought you were saying it was Saturday for some reason. I was really
no. Yeah, it's Friday at I think it's in the afternoon. It's like
practice is at 1, and then qualifying, or it's at 4:00 Eastern, and then qualifying is at 5.
Yeah, so afternoon for us.
Isn't quite when the race will be running, but pretty close.
The race starts at 7:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I guess
that's multiple hours later. Like, it's going to be dark.
Yeah, that's when the Xfinity race will be running. So I guess we can watch some of that and see if we can glean anything from the Xfinity race. Anyone running?
So I will say most of these longer shot guys, I don't know if I can get there on outrights, but I do like a lot of them. You can get some decent numbers in their placement markets right now.
Yeah. Do we know if anybody good is running in the Xfinity race or any Cup drivers?
Dale Jr. is in the.
All right, let's bet him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Should we go?
I was gonna say I'm probably gonna have a bet just for the feels on Dale Jr. and Xfinity. Anyway,
so. Top 10. Anything there? A lot of short numbers. Buescher minus 130. Don't hate that.
I'm not betting any minus top 10s.
You're not betting a minus 130 top 10 on a guy that we
have you not seen the last couple of weeks of Cup Series?
We're not running the last couple of weeks. We're running this week.
Oh, well, we got 500 laps of potential disaster.
Can I get a better number than 2-1 on Alex Bowman?
I would still bet that
for a guy who's 50-1.
I think he's 220 at Bet365. Yeah, he's 220 at Bet365. I already put that on the card. That's like a smash bet for me.
Smash it.
Which inevitably means he's going to wreck on lap 2 from what we've seen recently. So. Yeah, I do know the line is already moving on BetUS on Bowman, which is it opened at similar to 220.
Okay, I'll join you on that just because actually, have I added anything? That is a great question because I don't think I've actually put any bets on yet. I think I'm gonna bet Bowman at 48, and it looks like we're betting the same thing. So R.I.P. Alex Bowman.
I was just gonna say Bowman. Bowman is a no-go.
No way that ends well. No way that ends well. Let's see. 48.
It is kind of shocking to see that number get listed.
What? 48?
That it's much past 2-1 when you have like Briscoe, for instance, who's actually shorter.
Yeah,
There was one other guy too who, coming into the week, I was excited to see what his numbers were posted at, and it's not an absolute no bet for me right now, but a guy like Ryan Preece, who's traditionally ran really well here. I mean, not front end of the field well, but
the top
teams
10
well. Like, I want a good number on a top 10, and I know right now it's like 6-1 at some places, which I don't know. He doesn't qualify well.
No.
Yeah, I would much rather wait till post qualifying.
Yeah.
Because you probably get similar. Even if it drops to like 4-1 and say he's got a really good car, I'd probably rather do that than 6.
What about Justin Haley? He's been solid here. 9-1 to a top 10. That feels like I'm not asking you to win the race. I'm just asking you to be.
Yeah, that team's kind of fallen off the last couple weeks, though.
It's true.
I think the equipment is really affecting.
Yeah. Turns out Rick Ware Racing just
Yeah, they got a short spurt in their holster, and then they kind of fall off there.
All right, let's look at the manufacturer. Sometimes there's fun stuff in here. So obviously Larson's going to be a huge favorite, but Elliott, Byron, Busch, Alex Bowman at 14. I don't hate that. Like outside of Larson, Chevy doesn't feel like super dominant. So if someone gets like 6, that's top Chevy. I think that's sort of reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, just during the spring, Bowman was he cashed that bet.
All right, I'm not betting the top 10. I'm just betting his top Chevy number, and he's probably not going to cash either. So,
but I mean, again, that goes back to the fact that was a wonky race. So, there is one that I was actually curious at. Oh my Lord.
Briscoe at 850 to be top Ford.
No, go further. So Michael McDowell at 25-1. He did this in 2023. And just recently during the spring, he was the third finishing Ford behind the 2 RFK guys, Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. I mean, if you're going to give me 25-1 on him to finish 5th or 7th, I mean, who knows? What if those guys wreck?
Yeah. I think that's a phenomenal bet.
I mean, that's a huge number.
That's getting paid out, which is what you're looking for when you're betting on Michael McDowell top Ford.
One of the other props, too, that I was really excited to see what the number was posted at is how many cars finished on the lead lap. If they would post that for Bristol, because we have such a short track, there's going to be a ton of lap cars. If this thing stays green, you're probably looking at close to 10 or maybe even under. But recent trend tells you that there is no effing way we're not having an overtime here. So I think the play would actually be to bet the over.
I'm going to make a bet. It's probably not a smart bet, but I feel like it has legs. Tyrone Gibbs, top Toyota, 420.
I don't hate it.
I think he's going to be really good. I think he learned from his ventures. And if he doesn't win, which I think is very doable, I still think there's a world where he can beat. I guess if he beats Hamlin and beats Bell, he probably is contending for a win. But his outright price is not long enough where I feel like I'd rather just take the 420 and not worry about the 10-1 if Larson dusts the field or something.
Yeah.
Or RFK is just awesome or something. Or Alex Bowman wins the race and Gibbs is top Toyota. That sounds like a great way to run.
And also, too, when you account for the fact that Toyota only has 8 guys in the field, I mean, and how many of those guys is he actually battling against? I mean, Truex, Hamlin.
Like I said, Truex is ass. Reddick, Bubba, John Hunter, Eric Jones, no thank you.
But I mean,
he just has to beat Hamlin and Bell.
Even Bubba, for that matter, he's had some pretty shitty stuff happen to him the last couple of weeks. And like, where's his headspace?
Yeah, and to win the race, he's 10. Like, I'd rather take the 420 to be top Toyota than bet him to win the race.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where to go with Gibbs this week, to be honest with you, because I know he's fast. You know,
and I think he's going to qualify well. So if you want exposure to him, I would probably grab it now.
Yeah, I just don't know like how he's going to be able to hang on to his car though. That's the thing. You know,
you need to hope he learned. Buescher at -115 over Truex is really compelling.
Man, you're in full.
I think Marty. Yeah, Marty Parkey. Just gonna park it on the side of the track. It's fine.
Isn't Bristol the place 2 years ago? We're in the playoffs. Truex like blew up, or was that Harvick? They had like an engine issue.
Let me take a look. I can tell you.
Yeah, the matchup board is interesting too, because I think you really have to try to handicap qualifying.
Yeah. So before this year, he was like, obviously he finished second in the spring, but that was when he was running much better and looked like a championship driver. He doesn't look like that anymore. But if you go to his last 1, 2, 3, 4 September races, 19th, 36th, 7th, and 24th. I think he had a steering issue in 2022. Was that what you're talking about?
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he has 1 top 10 in 4 races. And the August race before that, 13th. The August race before that, 30th. The August race before that, 21st. Yeah, I'm fading Martin Truex this week. I don't care.
So does that mean that we should be betting Truex winning today?
Yes, hammer him in the outright market. Yes, he's gonna win the race.
Yep.
He's gonna rub it in my face. Seabell plus money over Hamlin. Like, I think those guys are pretty close. I know Hamlin can be awesome here, but given his recent form, I don't think that's a terrible bet. I'm not sure. Do we have any other head-to-heads? Does DraftKings?
Yeah, there's not a lot of matchup markets up right now.
Yeah. If you find anything you think is worth shouting out, definitely drop it in the comments. You can also hit Brian and I up on Twitter at Brian_Twining, at Notorious KRO.
Especially now that I'm out of Twitter jail. So. Which I have no idea how the F happened, by the way.
That's Elon. He didn't have the server space for all your tweets, so he had to freeze you out for a little bit.
Apparently, yeah.
Ford plus 240 to win the race. I don't hate that.
Yeah, but you're getting Keselowski and who?
What's the winning team? RFK is 550.
Nah, that's too short. I was just going to say, because when you look at the outright board, Toyota, Chevy, Toyota, RFK, Toyota, and then you have Blaney and Logano at like longer.
So just bet Buescher and Keselowski.
Yeah, and call it a day. Like I think if a Ford's going to win, it's probably going to be one of them. That's kind of the way that I would look at that. So I would bet them, maybe hit the Chevy market again, or Toyota for that matter, just because you're getting Denny, Bell, and Gibbs. And then you could actually back it up with the HMS guys that are like 12-1, 16-1. You go back and just bet Byron.
Yeah.
Is this Quinella?
No, this is both to top 10. I was looking for Buescher and Keselowski to top 10.
They'd probably post that at like 1.5-1.
Well,
Which I don't think any of that stuff is worth.
I don't even think they have it posted.
No.
They have them individually, but they don't have them together. Oh wait, no. Bell and Keselowski, Hamlin and Keselowski, Larson and Keselowski, Buescher and Truex, Buescher and Blaney.
All right. So, of the drivers that have competed in the last 10 Bristol races, there's only 17 of them that have done all 10. Only 4 have a 50% top 10 hit rate.
Yeah.
Like it's just hard to bet such short numbers on this market when this is not like, man, I don't even know if there is a track that it's easy to predict who's going to finish where. I mean, just think about it. If you get caught on pit road during a caution that you already have gone a lap down because this track is so short, like you're royally effed.
Oh yeah.
You know, like this is just a funky situational type track.
Just seeing if Bet365 has anything that were better numbers. Nope.
Ooh, they do have matchups. Hold on. Let me pull up their matchups.
They have Keselowski versus Truex, which is minus 160 for Brad. They have Buescher over Chase, which is minus 125. Logano and Reddick is minus 115 either side. Same with Cindric and Nemechek. Briscoe versus KFB. KFB is minus 150. Briscoe is plus 120. That is how I bet Chase Briscoe.
Oh no.
R.I.P.
It's funny you say that because the third guy on my list of who I wanted to shop a number for and outright was actually Kyle Busch.
Oh, bring it on, baby. Let it fade me.
But at 20, I'm not touching that.
What about at minus 150 to beat Chase?
No, I'm not taking Busch in a matchup at minus 150. Absolutely not. There is no way in hell I would bet that. I got to get like 30 on an outright on him, I think.
Byron minus 115 versus Blaney.
That's funny you say that because I was actually
seems good.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
Like we were talking about Byron like not being the best candidate for a race win, but that doesn't mean he can't beat Ryan Blaney, who's not great here.
Yeah, but I mean, how much of that has to do more with Blaney having some bad luck? Like he's led laps in a ton of Bristol races. Like when you go over the last 10,
yeah,
Blaney has led 507 laps over this span. He led 14 in the spring. He led 9 in 2022, 45 in 2021, 60 in 2020. And then when you go back to like his beginnings with Penske at Bristol 2018, he led 100 plus laps in both races in 2018. And then in the spring of 2019, he led 158. So he's clearly skilled at Bristol.
Yeah. Buescher has the 5th most laps led over the last 4. But
and then just going back to this Blaney versus Byron, how many laps again has Byron led at Bristol over the last 10?
1,000, at least 1,000.
1,000
or 0
minus 1,000. Yes.
How many top 5s though has Blaney gotten against Byron? None. Where no, he has 1. Byron has 2.
He has 2 over the last 10. I think they're completely even when it comes to total top 5, total top 10s. Their average finishing position is right near. It's like 17th and 18th.
So you're trying to do a show bet then? Is that what you're saying?
No, because I don't want a part of
either of them.
Blaney's like stuck in this spiral effect of Twilight Zone type stuff. So I don't know if I want to get any action on him.
Yeah. Let's look at one thing before we get out of here. Cup Series championships. Is there anyone worth taking a gamble on? Obviously, Bell, Larson, Reddick are all super short. Hamlin, super short.
Just bet it. If you like Denny, just bet him to win the race this week. There's no way you're going to catch me betting 550 on a guy who's currently below the cut line.
And like I like Byron, but it doesn't seem like it's going to come together for him. Logano's obviously gotten shorter. We like Bowman. Do we like Bowman because he's 50 and not because we think he can win a championship?
Yeah, I would rather just stick with
like a Truex. I remember when you were trying to tell me to bet him at like 14 or 16. Now he's 31.
Yeah, he's dead to me.
Tyrone Gibbs 40-1. I like it if you can get his top 4 like to make the final 4. I don't hate that, but he's not winning the championship. Brad K. If he's getting a lot of steam and wins this week, that 42 is going to get short. But can he win at Phoenix?
Maybe. I was just gonna say, I feel like the best number on the board right now, like if you hadn't added it already, is still what I called out when I talked about I got 150 is Cindric. Like he sits so pretty in the playoffs right now, and he's been running really consistent. So, and when you look at the next round too, like we have Kansas, who if Penske has made strides on those 1.5 speed tracks, top 10 is definitely not out of the question. Then we go to Talladega, where I don't think you can really argue too much against the fact that Penske is probably the best overall team at super speedways. And then we hit Charlotte Roval.
Time to be alive.
Right? And then if he gets into the 8, all bets are off.
Yeah. Yeah. But if he gets into the 8, he's probably also going to need a win on the final race to get into the final 4, and he's going to be like 150 like we bet Briscoe.
That's very true.
So,
that's a good point.
Do what you will with that. Brian, it was fun to get back. It was good to talk. Obviously, Brian and I will be reconvening Friday night. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you know when our pod posts on Saturday morning. We'll also have a newsletter, so subscribe to that. Both are completely free and help us out tremendously. Like I said, if you find cool bets, definitely let us know down in the comments. Let us know who you think is going to win. If there's anybody we missed talking about. We reconvene on Friday. We'll talk DraftKings. We'll build some lineups. We'll have some fun and get you set for Saturday night racing, baby. We'll go under the lights because it's Bristol, baby. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.